Coach, what did you take away just from watching the film, just from your weekend of Bahamas?
Well, I was surprised that we went 0-3. I was surprised at our probably more important than that, our level of play. I think that when we boarded the plane to go to that tournament, based on the practices that we've had, the way we played here at home in the 3 games that we played, I thought we were a much more confident and ready group for that tournament. The thing that's always difficult with tournaments like that, because it's early in the year and you're playing 3 games in 3 days in that one. Wherever you're at, once that first game is on, you're pretty much going to be at that level of play for the next 2 days. About the only thing you can do is review film, prepare as best you can in a ballroom or in a walkthrough, but you don't really have a lot of time to fix your problems. That goes for everybody. And experience sometimes is a valuable tool in those types of tournaments. Thing that stands out is, we obviously knew we were playing a lot of young players, a new group, and that new group wasn't nearly as ready or as confident for that tournament as maybe we thought. And so now it's up to us to fix it. I think that there are stories in sports every year that are much even worse than ours, that, at some point later that same season, that group, that team coach can look back and say the best thing that happened to this year's team is what we learned when we, in our case, lost 3 games in a row in the Battle of Atlantis. From that point on, we were able to fix these things. We knew our problems, we knew our strengths, and we got back on track, and we're at a level of play now and at a place that maybe we wouldn't have been if we didn't experience that so early in the year, because it is early, regardless of whether we did well down there or not. It is early. So now it's up to us to make that come true and to learn from it. It's a growth moment for a lot of individual players. It's a growth moment for our coaching staff. And it's about learning from it, improving, and being much better. In the short term, it's no bigger than being the most ready and best we can for Long Beach State at home, so that we can perform at a higher level and have the opportunity to go 4-3, not 3-4.
So how would you describe then, at this point, days later, the state of the team?
I mean, they're not ready to quit. We lost a few games in a row. Nobody around here is walking around happy about it. We're a program that has a lot of pride because of performance, not because of the name on the front of our jersey, but what that name on the front of our jersey has done over many, many seasons. We've been ranked in the top 25 for 4 years. There's only one team that can say they've done it longer, and that's Kansas, and they're still in it, which is remarkable. But there's 351 teams in college basketball. When you're one of 2, that's hard to do. So when you're out of the top 25 and you're that team now that's broken that streak, there's a lot of pride on the table. But the sun came up the next day. We had practice. We have a game here tomorrow night, which is an important game. And it's not really getting back on track as much as I'm anxious to see us improve and anxious to see what we learned, and are we moving in the right direction based on what we know as fact coming from that tournament. But the panic, I'm going to drive my car into this wall because we lost 3 in a row, that's not going to happen. I mean, we have too much talent, we have too many good things in our future, and it's too early in the year, playing a lot of young players. If we would have won 1 game, would the picture be a whole lot different? No, it wouldn't have. The only way that picture would be different for us right now is if we would have won 2 or 3, and quite frankly, that wasn't in the cards down there. We weren't good enough to do that.
Was there any of the losses that were more concerning than others, or parts of a game that were more concerning to you?
I think the concerning part is, we chart, our consistency throughout the game, breaking into those 4-minute segments. Each game represents 10 of those 4-minute segments, and we really try to operate on, be the team that wins the most of those. And when I say most of the time you end up winning the game, it's about 90%. If we look at the total of 30 4-minute segments in that tournament, because we played 3 games, we won 9. 9 of those 4-minute wars. So that puts you at 9-21. And, what that tells me is, we weren't, I don't want to say close because we had a chance to win 2 of the 3 games. But we weren't the better team in those games, and especially against Purdue. They were clearly more experienced, more seasoned, and a better overall team than us. SMU and NC State, both games could have gone both ways, but it's not one thing that's doing us in, and it's not one player or just our freshmen. It's really the whole. Against SMU, we had 20 turnovers. They had 70 shots to our 39. Is that right? I mean, they killed us on the glass, yet they were the undersized team. 20 turnovers and you give up that many second shots, you lose a hard-fought battle. That did us in. Earlier against NC State, I think everybody was kind of surprised in our group that, wow, this game's hard. We'd never experienced anything other than a blowout. With a group as young as we are, I think our confidence left us. It was almost like something was wrong. But we had a hard time defending them, missed free throws, didn't execute offensively. We lose. Purdue, it was the entirety. Thing that's disappointing about Purdue and really the other 2 games as well, the score was incredibly lopsided against Purdue. It was more of a 15-point deficit with about 8 minutes to go. And again, you look at our team, we caved in at the very end. I think they outscored us by about 13 points in the last 8 minutes. So now all of a sudden you lose by 25 points to Purdue. It was more about how we finished the game than being a 25-point difference throughout the game. So I just gave you 4, 5, 6 different things, right? So with that, we have to become, I think, an overall better basketball team. That's what a coach is for. I was disappointed that our team wasn't more ready, didn't have more confidence, wasn't further along in that tournament, and that's on me. So what's really on me moving forward is to do better and fix the things that I know that we can fix and improve. And we've already improved a little bit, I think. Today is another step in that direction, and then obviously we got to carry it into a game.
What's the first thing when you watch back the film that you recognize that, like, this is the first thing I got to fix in practice?
Well, it represents different things. I think the starting point for us is 2 things we can really control with our group is we have to be better at getting back on defense. That's the most discouraging and disappointing thing that I'll take responsibility for, because usually you have a good sense of whether you're good at that, you know what to do, you're doing it daily, and you're prepared for what's to come. We weren't, and that's disappointing. But you can't give teams open 3-point shots, breakaways. 2 defensive players on our team run to the same player. It's like that guy's already guarded. You're not pointing, talking, matching up. You're not stopping the ball early. You're not covering for your big guy. One time Duson fell down running back. That happens, but there's 4 other players. Any one of those guys, but in particular one guy could have covered for him, but he didn't. So, it's that communication, that effort level, the know-how and understanding that getting back on defense is the starting point. That's one. And number 2 is, sometimes in SMU, I thought we played with a lot of effort. I thought our defense was much more in tune in that game, and we couldn't get a defensive rebound. If DeAndre Ayton is the 3rd leading defensive rebounder in college basketball, which he is, that says a lot about everybody else. We have to help him. He can only do so much on the defensive glass. And you know what? He may need to do better than that. He might have to be number 1 for our team to be better. But defensive rebounding has been the most consistent statistic that we've had since I've become the coach here. If you look at all our teams, there's been very few exceptions where we haven't done well in that area. We weren't good in that area in the Bahamas. So the end of the defensive possession and the beginning of the defensive possession is the starting point for us to get things back on track on defense. And, it's no fun to do those 2 things. And right now, we have a couple players that aren't looking at that as important enough. And, there's 2 things that guys understand. When you run them and they can't breathe, or you take them out and they don't get back in the game. And both of those things are going to happen. It's already started to happen. And it doesn't matter who you are, how many points you score, where you're from, how tall you are, how short you are. You have to be able to run back on defense, communicate with your teammates, and make that important. And you have to be able to block out and go get the ball when they miss a shot. And those two things will start there.
How is it? You've been pretty level through the time you've been here. You always say, like, it's never as bad as it seems, but it's never as good as it seems when it's going good. How has it been for you personally? I mean, when you came home, everybody's freaking out that you lost 3 games. I mean, does it? Do you at least take a few hours where you're pretty upset, or you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's no fun to lose. No coach likes to lose in any sport. It's hard, and you lose 3 games in 3 days, and you're ranked number 2 in the nation, and you lose 3 games in 3 days, and you come back and you're not ranked at all. Not that rankings is anything, but I use that as the example of that doesn't happen often. So it was a wake-up call for everybody. You know, in hindsight, you always try to utilize these types of moments kind of from a growth perspective, growth mindset, and that is, now that it's happened, what can we learn from it? And I go back to the competition that we played against in Spain. Practices were great to do. The 2 exhibition teams that we played, the red-blue experience, and then, the schedule we played prior to leaving. Although, I think that, especially UMBC and Bakersfield, if you continue to follow them in their own right, I think they'll be fine, good at their level. But we have such a new group and a young, inexperienced group that it's really not their fault that they don't really understand how hard this is in college basketball. I mean, you have a guy named Dakota Mathias who plays at Purdue, and I don't know if he'll ever play in the NBA. Maybe he will, but there isn't a player on our team that probably had an understanding of who he was before that tournament. But he dominated the game because he's an older, smart, tough-minded, really good college basketball player. And it gets your attention as one of our freshmen when somebody like that is that good and you don't really know who he is. It's a sign of things to come. But if I had a do-over, we really could have benefited from a scrimmage where we got maybe some of this reality in a closed-door setting and maybe learned some of these lessons across the board prior to leaving for a tournament like the Bahamas. Because 3 consecutive games in 3 days against those 3 teams, I mean, there'll be a lot of teams that would drop a couple. But that doesn't mean we can't have a great season, a successful season, reach our goals. It's just learning from it, being better because of it, and like I said, growing from a negative experience. It happens all the time in sports. It happens in life.
Even last year, you didn't play the Stormers last year, but you played Michigan State the first game, so maybe is that along the same lines where you...
And I think that had everybody on edge. If you're getting ready to go there, play a game like that in the opener, the whole preseason was kind of on edge to do it. But I'll also tell you this, Kadeem Allen, he really meant a lot to our success last season. And in the non-conference season, he was a big, big part of our success because his ability to defend the other team's best perimeter player. There might not have been 5 guards in the country who did it better than him. His quiet leadership behind the scenes every day, his rebounding as a guard, his toughness, his unselfishness, it like permeated throughout our entire team. He showed the younger players the way. And we feel his void right now. But, for somebody like Parker and Alonzo going down to the Bahamas, I think they know now more than ever how important their voice is, how important it is for them to show everybody the way because, they're this year's version of Kadeem because of their experience. And that leadership and being able to play both sides of the ball, that's something we really, really need from those 2 guys right now.
There's certainly a lot there on the court. I guess I was wondering, there's been some national speculation, and I think this was in respect to you because this wouldn't be something you can control, but you've had this situation, you're out of an assistant coach who a lot of guys got along with, just maybe just a little bit different behind the scenes, and do you think that's maybe affecting somebody, maybe even in the back of their minds? Or
My focus is always on the same things, and our focus is always on the same things. There are a lot of things that you can't control. Focus on those that you can. You know, I'll give you a great example. I can't make Raleigh Alkins play tomorrow night. You know, I can think about it. It can consume me. I can talk about the value of somebody like him, his physicality, his rebounding, his experience. Think about the level of play he established as a freshman, how much better he could be as a sophomore. You know, a lot of the expectations of our team and season hinged on who was returning, not just who was coming in, but who was returning. And, you know, we haven't been able to have him as a part of anything we've done. Do I think we would have lost all 3 games if he was a part of our team? There wouldn't have been a chance that would have happened. But injuries are a part of sports. The silver lining, what we can learn is maybe how ready our freshmen are, how much better they can get. They're going to keep getting better and better because they have a great opportunity, not only in practice but in games. And none of those guys would have had the early opportunity here that they currently have if Raleigh were with us. So there might be a time, again, February, January, I hope, but where we hit a level of play as a team that has a lot to do with the things that we went through in November, the adversity, what we learned in the Bahamas, and but it's up to us to make that happen. You know, it's just because something negative happens and we talk the right talk doesn't mean that it's going to turn around. We really have to make it turn around, and I know that we're working really hard to do those things right now.
Is there a guy where, like Kadeem, you're talking about, he was tasked with stopping the top perimeter players? Is there a guy right now that you trust to do that?
No.
Anyone close?
No. No.
What kind of things are you guys working on to make sure that there will be someone at some point?
You know, we believe in our defensive system. We believe in the drills that we do. We believe in our way of practicing, how we try to teach our players, emphasize, teach them how to do it, and then when they're not doing it, how to deal with that. That's what we're doing. You know, we're very, very hard at that. I think that's a high priority when you guys are trying to decipher, you know, what is it that he thinks that are our biggest problems that we need to fix right now. I told you the 2, but it's so much on the defensive side of the ball. And I'll end with this in terms of that question. If you can name a basketball team that is cohesive, hard playing, disciplined on defense, when you think of that team, could you ever name a same group that's selfish on offense? It's almost impossible. It requires so much unselfishness and sacrifice and effort and cohesion that same group, they may have a night where they don't play as well on offense, turn it over, miss free throws. We did all that. Couldn't make a three-point shot. But eventually, as we keep moving forward, our offense will even out and will execute better. We'll have better role definition, take great shots from start to finish. But November, no matter who you are, you have to live a little bit with some of that on offense, you know? And maybe on defense too, but defense is something I think we can control more. So I think if you put a lot of your attention on the details on that defensive end of the ball, in a way your offense starts to follow suit. So that's the philosophy that we've always had. I think it's the right philosophy, and it's the way we're going with this group right now.
You talk about that philosophy, and I mean, it seems like every year, for the most part during the non-conference, the conversations always come up, especially with the young guys, and how in tune they are with, you know, your defensive philosophy. Is there anything, you touched on it, but is there anything more differential this season with those guys than in the past, or?
You know, I think that the oldest players on your team, the most experienced players on your team, they have to be kind of an extension of the coach because they have been there and done it. They have failed, they have succeeded, they have been through hundreds of practices. They have implemented, you know, that defensive style and system and watched it work. Kind of been a part of maybe a single game experience where we weren't on it. We didn't play with great effort. That always happens at times throughout a season. And you deal with the consequences of that. So, you know, how they go about their business every day, how they go about their business in games, embracing that sets the tone as much as anything for this year's team. And I think that's one thing that we have to do better and get our returning players to embody more. And because that's going to allow us to win.
Does it help that the upcoming schedule gives you no breaks, that every team you're facing in the next 2 weeks is either battle tested like Long Beach State, having played a ton of great teams already, or you have undefeated Texas A&M that just went and won at USC, undefeated UNLV. Does that help rather than facing maybe lower tier teams?
You know, yes and no. I mean, we have to be ready for every game, as you know. Nothing's going to be easy for our team, especially where we're at right now. But, you know, the game is kind of like it's the test. And, you know, if you go 2 weeks and you don't study and you lose your book, and then you find your book and the night before you try to cram for 3 or 4 hours, you might be able to pass the test, but you never, ever could have been able to get the grade that you are capable of. You know, our focus right now is to be the team that gets the grade we're capable of. Whatever our highest level of play can be, we want to be at that highest level of play. And if that means we're going to win in a hard-fought game on the road against an undefeated team, man, that's what we aspire to do. You know, same thing, if you have the opportunity to really be a double-digit winner, really play great from start to finish because you're more talented, you're deeper, you're a better overall team than the one you're playing, then we want to be that team. So I think it's, you know, I always talk about honor the process, but it's easy to say that when things are going well. When you lose 3 in a row, you know, you can't recreate a new process. You can't forget that these are the players that you believe in, that you've recruited, and this is the team we have. And we have a tremendous upside. We're not playing 7 seniors right now. We're playing a lot of newcomers, including DeAndre. DeAndre, all the things that he's done right now, I mean, I look at his stats and marvel. I mean, he's shooting 56% from the field. I'm sorry, 61% from the field. He's shooting 70 from the line, 12 rebounds per game, has 10 turnovers in 6 games as a young player, 8 blocks, 20 a game. I mean, he's off to a great start, but I think he's just scratching the surface. There are so many more things that he's able to do, and some of it's going to be us as a team helping him, and some of it just what I'm talking about, just continuing to get better every day because he's so young in his career. But I think the DeAndre that we can have in January and February, especially you know, assuming he stays healthy, man, he could be leaps and bounds better, even more production than now. So Raleigh's not playing. He's eventually going to return, and when he does, I believe we'll return one of the best players in our conference. And he's going to give us some qualities that are going to really help right away. Another offensive rebounder, another defensive rebounder, a big, strong, physical player. For the first time in about 6 or 7 years, I had the feeling that at times in games that we weren't the stronger, bigger team, that the team we were competing against was bigger, stronger, more physical. A lot of that has to do with the age and the size and strength of the teams we played. Basketball is physical, and when you're not that team, man, you better make shots, you better take care of the ball, you better really check out in the skill area of the game, and we didn't. So, again, another thing that we learned in the Bahamas.
What's the latest timetable then on Raleigh?
I don't really know completely. I know this, that he had surgery 9 weeks ago tomorrow. The diagnosis was 8 to 12 weeks. He wouldn't have been able to play in the Bahamas, but if we were like in a single elimination NCAA tournament, Pac-12 tournament game here this week, he might be able to play. But we want to be really cautious and make sure we give him the best, you know, time. He's able to do some non-contact things in practice for the first time, and then we'll steadily increase that. And what I would hope is sometime in the near future that he'll be close to being cleared to play, and then we'll go from there.
So
Maybe another week, or Texas A&M a possibility, or?
I really don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
And if, based on what you saw from him before he was hurt, I mean, could he become maybe a defensive stopper as well? I mean, I know he'd probably have a lot on his plate at that point, but.
No, I mean, once he gets settled in, I think he'll be a good defender.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah, because you were talking a lot about Emmanuel, and it sounds like he's still got a ways to go maybe on that, and he certainly has the potential, but, you know, yeah, I was kind of wondering to follow up on that. What else can you do to develop a stopper? Who else?
Right. No, I think instead of developing a stopper, we just have to develop a guy who can get a stop. And there's a big difference. You know, you have that defensive lineman, and, you know, he hasn't gotten a sack in 3 years. You know, it'd be nice if he could get one. We don't need him to be Lawrence Taylor. We just need him to touch the quarterback, you know. And there's a starting point in the progression, and our starting point has to be keep the guy you're guarding in front of you. When you're chasing him, be within touching distance. When he shoots it, get a hand up. Point or talk, it's your choice, choose one of them. Get as low in a defensive stance as you can. You know, don't run into the screen. Your goal is to run around it. Shot goes up, hit someone in the chest, block out. Don't let them run around you. That's where we're at. And that's really across the board. I'm not pointing the finger at one. I'll say DeAndre, you know, hard to criticize a guy who's the third leading defensive rebounder in the country. Maybe we need him to be number one. But overall, there's just a lot of things that we can get better at every day.
You had mentioned Nassau that possibly with the two big guys you might go zone or try the zone in some of the, is that still on the board? I mean, you have a lot.
Yes and no. I mean, we might mix it in, but, you know, it's just you have to get good at something first. You know, it's like you start to try to deviate and do a lot of things. How are you going to fix something that you know how to fix, that you know you can really utilize to maybe beat a team like Long Beach State? And you overlook that because you're trying to big picture it. Well, guess what? You know, you don't beat Long Beach State. And the reason is because you didn't improve a lot from the Bahamas. Unless we improve our level of play, we're not going to be successful tomorrow either.
Well, and speaking of Long Beach State, just kind of, I mean, they're running a pretty good tempo. They get in. Seems like they take the ball inside a lot. I mean, could that be kind of maybe the challenge you need at this point?
You know, they're the fastest tempo team we've played. It's going to really challenge what I talked about, our transition defense. You know, they're battle tested. Those guys, they play the hardest non-conference schedule in the world. They play everybody on their away court. And they play the best of the best, so it's not like they're going to walk in here to McHale and worry about anything. Plus, you know, there's a lot of teams that are going to lick their chops coming in here now. You know, they're going to look at our team as, you know, being the most vulnerable Arizona team ever. You know, when you think about it, very few teams here have lost 3 in a row. We're not a top 25 team, playing a lot of young players. We're vulnerable, and, you know, they're going to come in and, you know, trying to do what those 3 teams in the Bahamas did. So it's up to us to be able to answer that bell.
Are some of the older players disinterested in defense, you would say?
I wouldn't say that. I know they can do better, for sure.
What's your thought process deciding between Dylan and small forward and Emmanuel?
Well, evidence, practice, games. We have a lot more evidence now than maybe we did prior to leaving. I think we looked at that spot as kind of being wide open. I think Brandon Randolph has really stepped up. You know, and I think Dylan Smith, not maybe what you've seen in the games, but maybe more so what we have seen every day, based on his performance in practice, has maybe solidified himself a little more. But eventually, you know, we're not going to play everybody, and when that time comes, it will be more about what's happened than, you know, what we're trying to figure out. I think we have more answers now. We might not like the answers, but the answers we have now are more straightforward than they would have been 3 weeks ago. And that's the beauty of playing in a tournament like the one we played in. You do learn a lot about your team. You don't want to lose 3 games in 3 days, but you come out of that tournament with a lot more evidence than maybe you did prior to playing.
Would maybe go with Brandon tomorrow in the starting lineup?
We're going to start Brandon tomorrow. Yep.
It seems like he's back to normal. You mentioned earlier in the season, he obviously is gifted and aggressive as he is offensively. He's still got a long way to go defensively. Now everybody has a long way to go defensively. I mean, how is he doing on the other side of the ball?
It's I think judging our freshmen, you have to almost say that regardless of where they're at now, the question is more along the lines of are they improving? Yeah. How much better, defensively will our youngest players be against Long Beach State than they would have been maybe against NC State? And that's the barometer for them. Everybody else, it's more along the lines of you have to be at your very, very best. We can't accept anything less. It's not your choice whether you want to run back when the shot's missed. You have to sprint back. And the sprint versus the jog, that's something that we can control.
Thanks.